Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Living Room Studio. I am your man in Japan, jcontra, and continuing from the last video where I showed off some of my treasured Famicom games, we're going to the Super Famicom now. We'll open up some boxes, we'll take a look at some cartridges, and I'll show you some video games that are very important to me. So let me move these boxes aside. We'll save the boxes for last because, man, those Super Famicom boxes are really cool. So we'll start off with the cartridges. We'll go with Spriggans Powered, which is actually a game I've been playing. I actually just played it this morning. It's a cool shooter released by Nagsatsoft in 1996, and this is a sought-after game. Well, I mean, sought after is, I guess, a bit... I might be overstating it a little bit. Spriggans Powered is a shooter that is fun. It's, you know, there's not really anything remarkable about it besides the fact that it is part of the Spriggans series that came out for the PC Engine. It is a late release Super Famicom title. It came out when the N64 was, I think, already out or coming out in 1996. It might, someone's gonna have to correct me on the dates there, but this is, I guess you could say it's highly valued because it is a late release title, didn't get a huge print run. A complete in-box copy of this would cost, I think, about $300. I think there's a $200 copy sitting at some hard-off near me. It's certainly not worth that, in my opinion. It is a decent shooting game, but there's, like, the music is okay, the controls are okay, the upgrades are okay, but it is fun. And if you can find a cartridge like I did for about $30, I think, again, I found this at the Nakano Broadway Mandarake, which has great cartridge prices. $30 for a game like this is actually pretty good, and you can spend a good amount of time playing that game. Next up, we may have my most treasured Super Famicom game, Contra 3, Super Contra. I don't even know what they call it in the United States, but here we call it Contra Spirits for whatever reason. Spirit. It is, I mean, I dare say it's my favorite Contra. It is definitely one of the best looking and the fastest paced. I was able to get this for about $10 simply because it suffers from the phenomenon of the front plastic, I guess, is made from a different material from the back plastic. So you can see this part is yellow, this part has not. This is something that just certain games, I don't know if it's certain print runs of games or just certain games that have this phenomenon. I'll show you another couple games that suffer from this, but I was able to get it cheap for about $10. I think a good copy of this would cost about $20, and a complete in-box copy would cost about $80, which actually for Contra games for the Famicom and Super Famicom is actually pretty cheap. So put that to the side, and then we'll go, oh, we can show you another game. I guess this is another Konami game, so maybe it's just the Konami-produced titles. But here we've got Turtles in Time, a great game that has gone up in price recently. You'd probably expect to pay about $40 or $50 for this game. A complete in-box copy, again, is going to be maybe even $250 here in Japan. I believe this is cheaper than its North American counterpart, and it's not, you can't see it. It might not be as bad on the camera, but definitely in real life you can tell that the back part of this cartridge is suffering from yellowing, whereas the front part is fine. There's no issues as far as I can tell. It's a really good quality cartridge, very fun game. I still haven't been able to beat this guy yet, but one day. Now, just to show the price differentials between Super Nintendo and Super Famicom games, we have here Kiki Kai Kai, Nazo no Kuromanto, or you might know it as Pocky and Rocky. This is a really fun, I guess you could say, shooting game. I guess that's technically what it is. This was put out by Natsume back in 1992. I think North American copies of this game can go for $100 plus, maybe even more. It's been a long time since I've checked price charting, but this I found at an Ojama-con in Kyoto. I mentioned that in the last video. They've got amazing prices on video game cartridges, and actually, if you're going into Kyoto, you're not gonna find too many retro video game stores in Kyoto besides Ojama-con, weirdly enough. If you're looking for old video games in the Kansai area, you're probably going to have to go to Osaka, where on Dotonbori in the Denden town, they've got some amazing video game shops there. But in Kyoto, oddly enough, you'd think with Nintendo and a lot of indie game places showing up in Kyoto, there would be more video game stores there. Yet there are not, and I couldn't really find any besides Ojama-con. But I didn't really need any more simply because they had such great prices on rare video games. They didn't have too many uncommon or rare video games, but they did have Pocky and Rocky, and I was able to get a good deal on that. And then another game that illustrates just the huge price differential between North America and Japan. We have it here, Hagane, released by Hudson Soft in 1994. This, I think in the cartridge form, would be $200 in North America. I was able to pick this up at the Mandarake in Fukuoka for, I think, less than $50. And I wish I could put more time into this, but man, is it difficult. I have had a hell of a time getting past just the first level of this game. That last part is just so fast for me that I need to put a lot more time to really experience Hagane, but it's got amazing graphics, a cool soundtrack. It's just too difficult. I will admit it. I'm big enough to admit that Hagane is a real difficult game. Put that aside, and we'll go to both a game that is very precious and valuable to me, simply because it is Final Fight tough. It is, I don't know if it's if it's the last game in the traditional Final Fight saga. There was a Final Fight game that came out for the Sega Saturn that was a traditional 2D or 2.5D fighting game. This is the last of the brawlers. This is a fantastic street fighting game in the vein of what do they call it in Japan? We call it bare knuckle. Oh, Streets of Rage is what we call it in North America. This is actually not that great of a game, if I'm going to be honest. It is fun, and you really got to be into the series if you want to shell out the $100 for the game like this. If you include the tax, I think it was $90 base. That's actually pretty cheap. I've seen it go for $140 plus elsewhere. A complete in-box copy is starting to push upwards of $300 or even $400. Of course, it's because it's a late Super Nintendo title, and it did not get a great print run, I'm assuming. Final Fight 1 and 2 are much better games, but it's fine. It's very playable. It's still cool. I'm glad I have it. Let's put you aside. We're getting into the boxes, folks. Now, I have talked about my love of the Castlevania series, and here we've got, if you'll allow me to zoom out, we have a very interesting copy of Super Castlevania. Castlevania 4, I want to say, is its proper title in the series. We've got here the Trader grading. I picked this up in Trader in Tokyo. It says let's see, the box, the manual, and I don't even know what that's supposed to mean from that chicken scratch from whoever decided to grade this. You can see this used to be priced at about 8,000 yen when it originally came out, and that was actually a special price. This would have been, I guess, $80 back in the day, and it would have even been more expensive when it first came out. I think they discounted this. You can see here, it might have sat on the shelf and ended up becoming 2,195 yen. That'd be about $20 today. I mean, with inflation, look, when this came out in 1991, I can't tell you what the inflation would have been like on this. Although Japan has not really experienced inflation, so the yen prices will be the same, but the dollar prices will be very different. I picked this up for about $45 from Trader, maybe even $50, and that was a fairly good deal at the time. Castlevania games have really kept their value. Let's see what's on the inside here. Here we've got the manual. Let me zoom out so you can see the beautiful manual. It was really in great condition. And so you see here, it says all of these things here have damage to them in some form or another. But the box, like if you just look at the box, okay, it's got some creases where you'd be opening the box. That's just natural. That just makes sense to me. I don't have an issue with that. But this is how strict Japanese graders can be sometimes, that I can't, like, I'd have a hell of a time pointing out to you the flaws with this manual. The surfaces are great, okay, there's kind of a bend, you know, okay, of someone opened this. All right, I guess that's what is points against this particular copy of the game, is that someone actually touched and loved this game. But that is just my personal opinion. We don't have the power adapter insert, not that we need it, but we do have the plastic baggie, and we have the cartridge itself. But the cartridge looks really good. I love this Castlevania. This actually might be my favorite Castlevania. Rondo of Blood is pretty good, but I don't know if it's quite the same as Super Castlevania. Let's put you away. I think I did feature a lot of my Castlevania games in a previous video, although I don't think I had the chance to open up these things. You gotta be very careful. See, something that you'll notice when you're opening and closing Super Famicom games is that this lip here, I guess maybe this is what they counted as the damage. It looks like there was almost like a piece of a seal or tape here. I can't tell if you can see that residue on the camera or not. But just be careful that that lip does not get caught when you're putting away the game. Next, we'll go on to the next Castlevania game, which is the single most difficult Castlevania game, if not more difficult than Order of Ecclesia. We've got Castlevania Dracula X, or Akumajo Dracula Double X, or so, yeah, WX. Let's open this up. Once again, all right, looks like we've got a complete copy. This was actually, I guess you could say it was a deal. It was I say it was a fair price. I picked this up at Mandarake, I can't remember exactly which location, for about $140. That is actually a pretty good price in Japan. I've seen this go for $200 plus. It is in fantastic condition, give or take a couple of I guess, flecked off ink on some of the sides. We've got a manual that is, I guess the manuals also came in plastic coverings. We've got this barely touched, in great condition. Beautiful, beautiful artwork there. And then we even have, same as the original Famicom, we've got a green power adapter insert telling you to take your power adapter out of the wall socket lest you draw excess power, and a fantastic cartridge. It actually, I wish there was better art on the front. I've seen this particular cartridge, a quality cartridge, go for about $50 plus, I want to say. Actually, excuse me while I adjust the settings on the camera. It's gotten really bright outside, and I don't want to blind you guys with the beauty that is Castlevania Double X. I don't know if you're really into Castlevania. Well, first of all, if you're really into Japanese Castlevania, you're already going to be spending a lot of money trying to complete the set. If only because Vampire Killer Castlevania Bloodlines, I think, is now creeping up to be a $500, maybe even $600 game. So there's no way. I mean, maybe if I made more money than I do now, I could afford that game, but there's no way now I could afford Castlevania Bloodlines. But Double X, it's no substitute, but it is a great game all the same. So we'll put you to the side. And next we'll go up to, I showed some Fire Emblem games before. Let's go with the first one. For the Super Famicom, we've got here Mystery of the Emblem. This is actually not very expensive. I wouldn't pay more than $10 or $20 for a game, particularly in this condition. See here, it's even, I think it has another explanation. No, it doesn't, oh, look out, for sale and use in Japan only. Be careful. Nintendo might send the Nintendo police after you. Let's open this up. Let's see what's inside. Great artwork here. The Fire Emblem series, I think, is very collectible here in Japan, simply because there is really only one game that we'll get to that's very expensive. Yeah, this manual could have been in better condition, but it's been well loved. I like that someone has enjoyed and played this game. I myself have only been able to play a little bit of it so far. I mean, it is sort of a remake of the first Fire Emblem, which I've already played 2 other times. The cartridge is in fair condition. Again, a cartridge actually for this game, I think can sometimes be $8, maybe even cheaper if you're in the right place. I wouldn't spend more than $10 on the cartridge itself, or even $20 on a complete set. And if you're lucky, oftentimes hard-offs will just have sort of set prices for miscellaneous box games. Fire Emblem isn't particularly, I wouldn't say it's exactly common, but it's very rare that I go into a hard-off and I don't see a copy of this game, but although I wouldn't say it's particularly common. And then we go to Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. This is a game that is part of my shame pile. I have not been able to play this quite yet. This is actually, I think, slightly more rare than Mystery of the Emblem. And so this can, I think in cartridge form, go for $10 or $15. A complete in-box copy should be $20, maybe even $25 on the more expensive end. This is interesting. I just want to take a look at this. Here we've got a warning label. It says, don't use the Super Famicom with projection TVs, much like how the Famicom warned us in the last video. This also has a backup battery inside of it, so you don't want to turn off the power while saving. And actually, does it say, I want to see, let's see, yeah, when it does not say to hold the reset button down when you're turning off the system. So I guess we don't have to be that careful when we're playing the Super Famicom. Again, the manual, the instruction booklet. Sometimes you'll see just random English printed on some of these manuals, sometimes you won't. But this is great. Like this is something that I feel is lost when you are playing either the emulated version, or even if you're playing on, say, the Super Famicom Mini, is just the tactile sense and the artwork. This is a really cool throwback to, I guess, the mid-90s. When would this have come out? Like 95? 96, excuse me. So that's, again, the reason this would have been less common than its predecessor is simply because it was released late in the life cycle. That's a common thread between most, if not all, of these games, is the reason they get expensive is because they did not have high print runs. Games earlier in a system's life cycle are just going to have more copies of it floating out there in the wild, but not so with Genealogy of the Holy War. And something I would also like to mention, we've got a special insert here. Oh, I guess this is complete, folks. We've got here and we've got a different AC adapter warning. This is actually something I really wanted to point out. So not only should you take the AC adapter out of the wall when you're not playing, but when you're storing it, something I did as a kid and killed my original Super Nintendo AC adapter was I stored it just like this picture. And you see here, when you store it like this, when you've got constant tension on that cable, you're going to be bending the point where the cable goes into the AC adapter, and that's just going to cause a storm of problems for you. And while you can get Super Famicom adapters fairly cheap, they're pretty common, you obviously don't want to spend more than you have to. I mean, they're only $4, but that's $4 you could save and spend on another video game if you store your AC adapter properly. Another common insert with Super Famicom games, not all of them, but is fairly common, is usually an explainer. It usually has, here we go, it's got all the controls, all the buttons on it with cool, it's individual to that particular game. We've got the cool logo here. And then we've got, this is particular to Fire Emblem, of course, but we've got an explanation of the magic and the types of weapons. Axes are strong. Wait, hold on. Sorry. What was it? Yeah. So swords are strong against pole arms, I want to say. I can't remember. The arrows are confusing me, and it's been a while since I played a Fire Emblem. Of course, I'm sure someone in the Fire Emblem community is probably screaming their head off at me right now. But I'm very sorry that I can't remember which in the rock, paper, scissors of Fire Emblem, which is stronger than which. So let's put you away. And yes, actually, we will end the Super Famicom. We will end it with the most expensive Fire Emblem game out there. This is Fire Emblem Rakia 776. Now, the reason, again, that this is expensive is because, well, maybe I should give a little bit of history about Rakia 776. This, I think, came out in, I want to say, 1999. I'm going to try and look for... Let's see, yeah, here we go. Actually, 2000. This might have been I think it came out in 1999 for the Nintendo Power. Actually, let me open this up and I'll explain the backstory of Rakia 776. This game is hard. This is for hardcore Fire Emblem players only. There are actually two versions of this game that came out. There was the Nintendo Power version that came out in, I think, 1999, and Nintendo Power in Japan was a white cartridge that you would take to a convenience store. I want to say Lawson. They had these big machines there that you would plug your cartridge into, and it would overwrite the cartridge with the game data. So you would pay like $5, $10 and get the full game. And for a while, that was the only way that Fire Emblem Rakia 776 was even available. But they ended up coming out with a retail copy. First, they came out with a pre-written Super Famicom cartridge with a big box that had, I think, like a plush toy and a couple of other... It was almost like a collector's edition that you would get today. But that only came with the white... I think it did not come with this cartridge right here. This is the complete retail copy of Rakia 776. This can go for easily $150 plus. I bought this from the Surugaya in Akihabara. I think the collector's edition, which has the Super Nintendo cartridge, I want to, or Super Nintendo, oh my god, I'm getting my words all over the place. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. The Nintendo Power cartridge with the collector's edition, I think costs upwards of $200 plus. It's even more expensive than this retail copy, although I have seen it go for $100 if you can find the right place. We've got the AC adapter warning here. We've got a beautiful cartridge. I kind of wish I had waited a little bit and gotten a box that was in a little better condition. I think I paid about $120 for this game, and it's not really moved up that much in terms of price. But it is hard, simply because all of your characters have stamina points. That means you can't rely on your characters, because with every action, they use up stamina. And I think I can't remember if it recovers at all in between battles. I think it recovers a little bit in between battles, but you can't rely on characters, folks. So don't waste your super strong characters in the very beginning. You want to save them. Let's see. Okay, yep, it's been more than 20 minutes, so I did not have a chance to get to my PC Engine games. We're just going to end it here with Rakia 776. I had a fun time going through the Super Famicom games. I hope you were able to see some of the inserts that you get with these kind of games. And this is another thing, you want to be careful. I think even Rakia 776, I think I've started to see some counterfeit copies floating around. There's another thing where if it looks too new and it's too cheap, it's probably too good to be true. Make sure you check out Alipay so that you can see, or AliExpress. Make sure you go on there, you type in the game that you're looking for, so that way you can see some reproduction cartridges and see what the reproductions look like when you're comparing it with what is hopefully a real game that's sitting right in front of you. That's it for me. I've been your man in Japan, jcontra. Stay tuned. We'll be going into the later systems. We're talking PC Engine, Sega Saturn, Dreamcast, some other cool games that I'd like to show you guys. This has been My Treasures. Thanks for watching. See you next time, and mahalo.